So you wanted to talk about adminning a Facebook group, which is Massage and Bodywork CE Review. What is it? Feedback on classes taken?
Feedback on classes taken. We it's a really long title.
Yeah.
But we made that feedback on classes taken because we really wanted it to be like apparent that the class is for feedback.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good group. It's still kind of new. I think it's been around for about a year now, and it was born out of myself and a couple of other therapists, a few other therapists, Janice, Jacinda, Jay, and Simone. We were all talking about just the quality of continuing education compared with the cost of continuing education, and it was frustrating to read and to talk to a lot of other therapists who spent so much money on these classes to not get the quality of education for the cost.
Yeah.
And you can write a review, directly to the provider, and that's great. And hopefully the provider, enhances their classes or improves upon it. But that doesn't really help a lot of the other people that are out there that are interested in taking these classes. They don't know, because they haven't experienced, and all they're getting is typically the advertising. Like, take my class, it's so great, these are the reasons why it's great. And obviously no one's going to talk bad about, a class in an advertising post. So, we had tried talking about certain classes on some of the other groups, and there was just so much aggression and opinions going back and forth, and it just became easier to have a safe space for people to actually discuss just their feedback on the classes, just their personal opinion, whether it was great, whether it was bad, whether it was mediocre, whether it was worth the money, whether it wasn't, just so that they could talk about it and not feel like they were being bashed or feel like they were advertising or not. And this way the other therapists could see what was going on.
Yeah. When I first discovered the group, and I don't even remember, because I don't think you and I had met in person whenever I found the group.
I knew you were in Austin, and I've seen you like in the other forums and other groups. Yeah. I knew you were local, but our circles hadn't.
Yeah, so I didn't even know the group was run, admin by somebody here in Austin. But I supported the group because I'm usually high on ethics and transparency. So the feedback I get on my classes, for instance, I use that to kind of shift the focus of class at times.
Which is how it should be.
Because
to meet the needs of your students.
Yeah, you're just trying to deliver a superior quality class, and it's a bad idea not to get student feedback to be able to tweak that in various ways. And the way that I'm able to interact with students to give them a superior product is from that feedback. Because if one student has an issue, other students are likely to have similar issues. So as much as I advertise, like paid ads, as much as I deal with organic marketing, which is like word of mouth or reviews, for instance, I have an email list and I will link occasionally your CE review group to try to get students to join it. I'll sometimes tell students in class to go to your group to write a review of my classes because I want other potential students to see that.
It's a form of passive advertising.
Yeah, and I think one of the differences with me is I run a business that's more of like an internet model, which is that sort of transparency is high because we have communication that we didn't previously. And that was the reason I supported the CE review group, because I could see the same, what looked like old school advertising on other groups where take my class, it's the greatest thing ever, but there wasn't really even any information.
There's no dialogue between the providers and students. And I've gotten a fair amount of pushback from some members and from other providers saying, don't let providers in the group, don't let providers talk.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I completely understand that stance, because in other groups, the advertising is just so blatant and so in your face, without a lot of information, But the reason why we wanted to open the group to providers was to have that dialogue between, potential students and the providers, to be like, if a client or if a student asks, I'm thinking of taking this type of class, why should I? A provider can come in and say, well, I offer this class, but here's the reason why it would be beneficial, versus take my class because it's great. We want that dialogue. We want these members to be able to talk with the providers to get a sense of their personality, to get a sense of their philosophy towards whatever they're offering, and to see if it's a good fit for their practice, so they don't end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a class and just be like, well, it's kind of a waste because it doesn't fit with me. We want to create a community for therapists and providers to network and to really just build everyone's practice. And the other hope is that when other providers see these reviews and see what other providers are doing, that they'll improve their curriculum, they'll improve their classes, they'll do things to meet the needs of their clients, their students, and that's why we allow it.
Allow providers.
Allow providers into the group.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have even, because recently I made a post. A student came on, or not a student, but a massage therapist came on, and they said, "Hey, I'm freshly out of school. What classes should I take?" And because I'm very active on Facebook, I immediately wrote, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm really biased because I teach CE classes, but I think you should study Thai massage with me." Mm-hmm. But I said it in such a way that it was kind of poking fun. It wasn't really advertising. I didn't put a link. There was not even in my free workbook, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. And then you liked it or whatever. Mm-hmm. We had a conversation about it where you're like, I was this close to deleting it.
And it's partially because you are very interactive with everybody on the board. You don't just come on a post to post your website or post your blog or post whatever.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that interaction with the other members. So it skirts the line, and we've talked about it. But really, it's I'd like to see more from providers, communicating. The
problem is, and I think part of what we're touching on is you are using Facebook and social media in the same way that I am. Mm-hmm. And a part of the challenge is both massage therapists and providers, continuing education providers in our industry, they're not using social media for its interactivity. They're still operating, and this is a big complaint with me, like it's 1990. Mm-hmm. The technology has changed so much that a person like me, if you watch my first YouTube video, I talk about being a technophobe. You ever seen that one?
No, I haven't yet.
Yeah, it was an old flip cam video. It's horrible production quality. And the thing is, I went from that place to where I am now, which is I'm dragging massage therapists along into things like Snapchat. Mm-hmm. So the interactivity is what I see primarily. It's almost even worse, not with therapists, but with CE providers, because they're typically older. They're not as current on technology. They're still looking at marketing as
flyers and posters.
I put $1 in, and how much do I make back? Mm-hmm. What's my return on investment? And figuring out your ROI on social media is really hard to chart, because let's say I send out an email. If I send out an email that's just buy something, people are going to unsubscribe. Mm-hmm. What I do is I do send out an email that says, hey, buy something. But typically there's a lot of other content, if not in that email, in other emails, where it's free YouTube videos, free content, social media, mm-hmm. this, that, So by the time I'm actually asking for a sale, I've given them so much free stuff mm-hmm. that they feel much more inclined to either buy something, or they're not going to unsubscribe, they're just going to delete the email and then catch the next one. They're not ready for class yet.
So it's also created a kind of loyalty, because they've bought into what you're going on, bought into your philosophy.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm also frustrated with a lot of, mainly providers, their lack of social media presence and interaction, because we live in a society now where everything is very immediate. We need answers to these things, we have to make these decisions. And being able to talk and get a sense of what somebody's philosophy is regarding their class or whatever helps build that bond, whether or not they want to invest this money. So it's like if I'm just going to a stranger, it's like, why should I buy your class? Like, it looks fine on paper, but I don't know anything about you. I don't know how that's going to affect my, practice. I don't know if I'm going to go to class and just hate you and completely ignore with what you're saying because we don't mesh.
Yeah.
But, with social media, you get a chance to really see the providers as people, see what they're doing. And it's frustrating that people aren't capitalizing on that and creating that network.
I still think many CE providers look at, in my experience from talking to them, many of them look at things like, say, a YouTube video. If I shoot a YouTube video and show you how to do something, and let's say that's something that I provide in my class. So there's a technique, a soft tissue technique that I show in class. I put it on a YouTube video. People look at it like, why would you take my class if I've already taught you for free in a YouTube video?
And the thought would be, there's got to be something more.
Yeah, there is. But it's also the fact that we teach something that's kinesthetic. So even if you can see it in a video, that may demonstrate a certain level of skill that makes you want to come study with me, and a certain level of like transparency. You hear my voice, see my face, my sense of humor. But it's not going to replace, because it's not the same thing as being able to feel what's going on.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I get this with students. I have workbooks on my website, videos on my website, there's YouTube stuff, tons of content. And people will watch a YouTube video or two and go, I got to study with this guy, and then turn the YouTube off. Because that social media presence primarily functioned as advertising.
Yeah.
I will go into my social media, this is how I use it, and I will actually ask, hey, I've got 1,000 people in my Facebook group, there's 5,000 plus people on my email list. I will occasionally ask all of my followers, is there any content that you want? Do you want me to produce videos on shoulder pain or whatever? And if they ask me questions, I can produce content to answer their question. And I've had people do this on YouTube, where they'll respond to YouTube comments. I feel like I get a fan for life, because when within 5 days I produced a new video, and that person on YouTube who's never talked to me before winds up getting a video that was custom made because of their question, they're like, whoa, man, this guy, he communicated with me. And that's the weird thing. It's like people always act like the phone has made us less personal. But if anything, it just stacks on top in my experience. I'm not afraid of giving away content. It doesn't really concern me. There's not a sense of lack, I think. But I'm not really certain how much of it is the people having technophobia and they're afraid to use the channels. I'm also unsure, because social media has shifted things in a way where we're used to thinking of things as being consumers. So you have NBC, ABC, CNN. You're consuming content, but the cell phone, the smartphone, has given us this situation where we are the channel. And it's smaller to our group, our group of people. I mean, even when we talk about the CE review group that you run, or admin, there's 3,000 people on it. I mean, statistically for the planet, it's not a huge number of people, but it's a very niche amount of information. If those 3,000 people decided they wanted to take a class with me, that's amazing for business.
And it's all part of the networking thing too. That's what I'm really about with this, especially with this group, is just connecting people with other people. You have therapists who live in major cities, you have therapists who don't, and they wouldn't have access to, this information, or they would only get, their mailers or what ABMP or, whomever sends them. And this is just another level of getting information out there. And people should be out there and exploring new things, discovering new modalities, trying new things to improve their practice and improve their relationship with their clients, and just improve, the massage industry as a whole. Because the more that we expect better education from our providers, the better we're all going to be overall. And the more the quality of what we do is going to improve.
To me, it seems so obvious, but I think in this instance, there's not a lot for you and I to debate because we generally agree about how the technology is used.
I think it's difficult for older therapists or more established therapists because they've seen a lot of them have been there with the rise of franchises. They've seen the industry shift. They've seen prices change, and they've seen science and modalities change. So they've seen a lot of it, and it's amazing the wealth of information that they have, but at some point they also get kind of stuck in their way of doing things because it's what's worked, it's what's weathered them through this franchise storm. But it's still, everybody has to grow,
Well, the way the technology has changed just from, say 1990 to 2016, it's changed so much that what I've noticed across the board, not just massage, but business generally, because I stopped looking at just massage for marketing information years ago, and I started looking at other industries. How are other industries changing marketing, advertising? What are they doing, and what can we adopt as the massage industry? And what I see again and again, it's amazing to me, the successful businesses that what happens is through a combination of skill, luck, and effort, they stumble onto a particular pattern that generates revenue. And here's the thing, once they get hooked into making revenue that way, they will not change. Their entire business will almost go completely bankrupt before they decide to switch up revenue streams. It is absolutely amazing to me how stubborn people become. Successful businesses, successful businesses contacting me for marketing advice, knowing that my marketing is, buying a $900 video camera and shooting YouTube videos, and they're contacting me trying to figure out, how is this guy making a living and making money?
By giving away free content.
Yeah, it's almost counterintuitive because when I put this out, it's like I'm not generating ad revenue through YouTube just yet. Even when I do, people are complaining to me that YouTube's ad revenue is going down. So even producing YouTube videos as a source of income, that model is changing. But if you're completely hooked into that one model, that's where I see it again and again across industries. That's the same complaint I would have about the cab industry and Uber. Why didn't the cab industry invent Uber? Well, because they got hooked. Yeah, they got hooked into a specific way of doing business. Ride sharing didn't exist. That smartphone technology didn't exist. And somebody outside of the cab industry saw
the potential.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like with Blockbuster and Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix approached Blockbuster to do their online streaming for movies. Blockbuster laughed at them.
Yeah.
Who's bankrupt?
Yeah.
There's technology's just changing so much.
Yeah.
And
it continues to shift. Increasingly, my stance on technology is just one of relaxation, where I go, oh, what's this? This is a cool toy. What does this do? It's more inquisitive. I find I get further with that sense of curiosity, and I'm not as concerned about perfection. The audio quality, video quality of this, I'm still getting accustomed to shooting. I don't really worry about it. Increasingly, what I've noticed even with Snapchat is I'll Snapchat from a class, and I can tell one of the students, even though they've said it's okay if I shoot video, they're uncomfortable because it went from we're hanging out to all of a sudden
people can see it.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, this is permanent, this is this, this is that. And it's like, no, a year from now, very few people are going to dig back and find this specific video because I will have released another 200 videos, and people are following you as they go. They're not going back and watching, just like you said. You haven't seen that first video. It doesn't matter, it's just a matter of getting started. If I waited until everything was perfect,
everything would have already changed.
You'd never do anything. It just doesn't. It's the same thing with my workbooks, it's the same thing with my DVDs and paid videos. I look at them, and each time they improve in quality, not only production value, but I find more of my niche, I find more of my voice, why am I different as a continuing education provider? What is it that I provide that others do not? And there's that self-reflection. What's really great about shooting things like this is, let's say people comment on YouTube, or we put this on the CE review group, people take a look at it, we're talking about CE related stuff. People give feedback. And from that feedback, I'm very quickly able to change things. And I think people are more likely to give feedback online. Like, we hate YouTube because it's like the bathroom wall of internet conversation. You know, people come on and tell me I'm fat, and I'm like, okay, take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, I've got 50 people saying massage videos I release are great, and they're learning tons of information.
It's generating talk. It's just people are talking about it. What is this? How is this doing? Is this in my area? I want to know more about this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the benefit that a lot of people aren't seeing, because YouTube is a dark place.
Yeah, it just is what it is. The other thing is, I'm not particularly attached. So when we talk about social media, videos, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, I play with them and I put out content through all of these channels. The content is slightly different because the channels are different in the same way that ABC, NBC, they are different. The technology also is a little more variant from channel to channel. But as I use them, as I watch other people use them, I figure out how to streamline. I figure out how to put out content that is interesting to people, that actually draws them in. I mean, even watching this video, my sense is that when people see you and I talk, we become more human and we become more trustworthy.
Probably true.
Because of video. And that's the thing.
It's putting a face to a name, though. It's putting a face to a situation, I guess.
Yeah. I suspect that over time these things will shift, and
they will.
Just like any industry, the massage industry is rapidly changing.
I mean, it has to, though. That's because everything's always changing. Like Twitter, I mean, like you were just saying, YouTube is generating less ad revenue, and that's because things are changing. You know, something else is going to happen. Some kid's going to come up with something new that's going to be way more awesome, and you have to flow with that if you want to keep in connection with your, your audience, basically, who are ultimately your clients, in both, as a provider and as, as a therapist.
It's the same content. Let's say you studied massage in 1980. To me, it's the same content. The bodywork portion of what we do hasn't changed much at all in the past 30 years. But look how much the technology has changed. And the technology, like when I tell massage therapists to innovate their practice or be an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship to me always has a note of innovation. But they always think it's innovating the body work. And that's very rarely what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is innovating the connection with your audience, the sense of being personable, innovate how you deliver the service, do you do out calls. And a lot of therapists don't think of that as an innovation, but here's the thing, when you decide to focus on out calls, and I'll just use that as an example, if there's only 5% of therapists in your city who offer out calls, you've innovated. You're offering a service that other places can't touch. That's
the reason why, I understand why people get frustrated with the rise of franchises, but they filled a much needed or a much underserved market.
Yeah.
Before, these franchises came along, everybody thought massage was at a high-end spa, $120 an hour, for an hour, and it was, usually just going to be a Swedish relaxing thing. And Massage Envy came along and broke that model. It was like, no, here it is for the masses. And it changed our industry, whether that's for the good or for the bad. It brought massage to the forefront. People know that they can go and get this. More people are talking about it, which has overall created more clients. And now that you have these more clients, it's just like you're saying, you have to stand out from everyone else. Why are you better than somebody in a franchise? Why are you better than another therapist in town? And that's and it's not just like you're saying. It's not just the bodywork. It's reaching those clients, and that's where again social media comes into play, because everything is so instant. We're all connected to our phones. We're all connected to everything going on, and you want to be connected to them, because if you're connected, they know that you're there, they can see what's going on, and then, you know, that's how you're generating clients.
Yeah. When you and I think, share a lot of attitudes based on the conversation we're having now. And on massage groups, I see pretty consistently that therapists will complain about large chains. I'll even jokingly sometimes call it massage warehouse surplus. Okay. It's like the big box store. And I just don't. I you know, let's see, how long have I been? 14 years? So I've only been around 14 years, so I haven't been able to see as many changes as, say, David Lauderstein, because he's been around for
30 or 40,
and he owns, you know, the premier school in Austin, so he's seen an even bigger shift in the industry towards what I think is essentially respectability.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're basically riding forward on the work that people like David Lauderstein and John Conway did to establish massage.
Totally.
But I'm continuing to push forward into, well, what is it for 2016? I mean, that's great information to know how it was, you know, 1980 or, you know, past, but massage therapists across the board seem to be saying that it's more difficult now because there's so much competition, the market is saturated. I hear things like that constantly. And I think it's just the opposite. I think that there are so many consumers who know what massage is. And here's the thing, what percentage, and I don't know the statistics on this, what percentage of the U.S. population right now gets a massage with any regularity?
I would say not a whole lot.
10%? 20%?
I'm not sure.
Even if we said it was 25 would be a quarter of the population. What I see massage therapists doing is they feel like they're fighting over that quarter.
That small point, yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you go talk to the other 75%? And the massage therapists, their minds are just kind of warped by that. And here's the thing, if you're a small massage therapist at home and you're trying to figure out how to, you know, run your business and how to do things, one of the ways that you win from Massage Warehouse Surplus, a big box store, is that big box store is never going to be as personal as you are. And when you make videos, you're more personal to your clients. I have a home studio, I work on a client, my sessions are very long, that client makes a joke to me, she's female. She makes a joke at some point where if I'm not home by 5 o'clock, my husband is going to come looking for me. And I was like, oh, you afraid you got a serial killer, huh? Because she's coming to my home, she's seen my website, she's seen my videos. And I said, listen, I know that you feel like you may be in a situation here where you're with a serial killer, you've come into my home, we're joking with each other, I can tell, but based on her facial expression, this is okay. And I said, why did you decide to get a session with me? And she said, oh, I watched like 10 of your YouTube videos. And here's the thing, that's what I mean about that ROI, that return on investment. I can't quantify, I made these 10 videos, it took me hours to make those videos, it cost me money, and then I got a client who could potentially become a regular client. But having access to this technology makes me more personal. That amount of personal is the difference between having a hamburger made for you at home and going to McDonald's. It's a different experience.
It really, really is. And you can see that, you know, when you go to these solo practitioners or these smaller places, it's just, like you're saying, a more personal, more tailored experience. You know, the franchises, they have their place. They have their loyal customer base, and that's great. Just like you said, therapists don't need to fight for them. Just like therapists don't need to fight for all of the Groupon clients. There are, billions of people on this planet. You know, everybody could use massage. Go for it.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe, yo.